please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Subdate 230118.9. The celebrity inmates keep on growing in number, and it has me wonder, are these reality stars really this arrogant as to believe themselves above scrutiny, or are they just this forgetful? Hello everyone, welcome to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome inmates number 152 to the ISO cubes. But before I even talk about who inmates number 152 is, I have an update to you to a previous video we've done titled The Teacher, The Police Officer, and The Van Wilder Cakes. If you've ever seen Van Wilder's House Party, Ryan Reynolds essentially played Ryan Reynolds. During that movie, he had played with his bulldog to release some tension in that bulldog's life. And, well, that was then fed to a team. I'm not playing the clip, but if you ever see the clip, you know what I'm talking about. It's quite grim when you see the photos, the goo, the cum, and all that stuff. Well, Cynthia Perkins used her husband, Dennis Perkins' semen, to season cake batter that was then served to students at Westside Junior High School. She had formerly been employed there as an English teacher. There is in fact even a video of Dennis Perkins helping to make the concoction. Last year, Cynthia Perkins pled guilty to a whole number of charges. Second degree RAPE, production of child adult content, not nice in the slightest, and conspiracy of mingling harmful substances. The update is, she had, as part of a plea deal, which included admitting to assaulting a minor sexually and aiding her husband in filming a minor who was bathing, she would testify against her husband to receive 41 years in prison. Dennis Perkins was left with no choice because of this and received a sentence of 100 years in state prison. He was originally facing more than 75 criminal charges when he was first arrested in 2019. In return for pleading guilty and accepting a 100-year sentence, the state is dropping the remaining dozens of additional counts against him. For the remainder of his life, he'll also be registered as a sex offender, because of course in prison he's totally going to be around those. So back to inmates number 152. So inmates number 152's name is Jen Shah. Jen Shah is an American television personality who I've literally never heard of, and there's an obvious reason why. Because television personality is quite a broad term for reality television, which is where I know nothing about Jen Shah. But we have a small amount of information on a very Spartan Wikipedia page, because the filmography is literally only The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. They're everywhere apparently. I assume one day there'll be The Real Housewives of Reigate, where I grew up, and The Real Housewives of Crawley, where I was born, and The Real Housewives of Smallfield, which will just be farmers and chavs. Anyway, with the limited information we have available, maybe we should take a look at who Jen Shah is before we speak of the crimes that she committed. Jen Shah is a 49-year-old television personality more notable for The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, which is in Utah. She actually went to the University of Utah, in fact. As far as the show goes, it seems to have plateaued in Season 2. Season 3 is not doing as well as the first season or the second. No doubt the controversy surrounding Jen Shah will do them no favours. And there were controversy surrounding one of the cast members called Jenny because on her Facebook there were posts criticising Black Lives Matter, which she went on to deny, but is not related to Jen Shah, so we're going to ignore it. Originally, Jen Shah was a Mormon who converted to Islam. She's married to football coach Sharif Shah and they have 2 sons together. I am kind of curious with regards to what has happened to Jen, how this will impact her appearances in future episodes of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Will she have to wear orange, perhaps? Because of the nature of the industry she's involved in, we don't have too much going on, but there was a documentary titled Housewife and the Shah Shocker that did premiere on Hulu in November 2021, but as what we need to now focus on, because there's a complete lack of any additional information, is the crime itself, we're going to talk about that. I have a bit of a soft spot for talking about crime. On Tuesday the 30th of March 2021, Jen Shah was arrested in Salt Lake City along with her assistant Stephen Smith, who had also starred in the reality television series, in connection with a 9-year investigation by the New York Police Department and Homeland Security, spanning at least 5 states and involving hundreds of victims. What doesn't help Jen Shah is that Jen Shah flaunted her wealth on that show for years, buying her friends rather expensive jewelry and bags, claiming to take private jets everywhere. She even said when she was arrested, "The only thing I'm guilty of is being Shah-mazing," which was a term she used as promotion of her brand on that show, with everything that she could insert it into being declared Shah-mazing. That's really cringy. I don't like it. At the time, the conditions of her bail included being banned from leaving the state of Utah or using a credit card. The banning of her leaving the state of Utah or the US without permission of a pretrial officer also meant she had to surrender her passport. She was also not allowed to obtain any new credit cards or new lines of credit. Prosecutors in the Southern District of New York alleged that the pair had been running a fraudulent telemarketing scheme since at least 2012, which involved a widespread coordinated effort to lure in victims with claims they could help make their online businesses more profitable, like those crappy ads you see on YouTube. You know, the ones that tell you, oh, you can make all these thousands every month, oh my god. You can't, don't lie to them. Authorities also alleged she exploited her fame to buy and sell leads on vulnerable victims, including the elderly. Now this is where it ties into the show handily, but she was making her millions, as she often declares she was, or had, on the show for years before that show came to light. Oddly enough, I thought perhaps she had been a feature on Shahs of Sunset, which was another reality show featuring a Persian family in Los Angeles. But turns out I'm just wrong and not everyone is a Shah, or Shah-mazing. And believe it or not, I only know about that because of another co-star of hers from the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, because I got clicking on Wikipedia links and there it was, and I thought, oh, maybe she was on that. Moving on. The so-called business opportunities pushed on the victims by Jen Shah and Smith and their co-conspirators were just fraudulent schemes motivated by greed to steal victims' money. Those are the words of Manhattan U.S. Attorney Audrey Strauss. Shah also boasted she needed $50,000 a month to maintain her lifestyle in promotional clips for the first season of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. At the time, she was looking at up to 30 years in prison for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. The indictment states that leads to unsuspecting victims were generated by sales floors operating in Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and elsewhere. Very specific. Those sales teams shared their leads with telemarketing teams in New York and New Jersey. Oh, so that's where. The different sales teams coordinated with each other to prevent victims from getting refunds. Shah and Smith personally generated and sold leads for use by the telemarketing teams, using their fame to persuade alleged victims to sign up. The pair would then receive a share of the illegally obtained profits from their co-conspirators. Audrey Strauss also had said at the time, Jennifer Shah, who portrays herself as a wealthy and successful business person on reality television, and Stuart Smith, who is portrayed as Shah's first assistant, allegedly generated and sold lead lists of innocent individuals for other members of their scheme to repeatedly scam. It took me a while to find an article that actually covered that. It took me a while because most of the more recent articles only talk about the consequences of this, which I guess we can go to next. Originally, at her arraignment in April, Jen Shah had pled not guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. This was then changed the following July. So in 2021, she pled not guilty. Over a year later, pled guilty. In the Southern District of New York, during 2012 and 2021, she is quoted as saying she agreed with others to commit wire fraud. I knew this was wrong, I knew many people were harmed, and I am sorry. Her lawyer had said that Ms. Shah is a good woman who crossed the line. She accepts full responsibility for her actions and deeply apologizes to all who have been harmed. Ms. Shah is also sorry for disappointing her husband, children, family, friends, and supporters. Jen pled guilty because she wants to pay her debt to society and put this ordeal behind her and her family. Because she pled guilty to one charge, the US Attorney's Office dropped the second charge of conspiracy to commit money laundering. Both charges would have got her up to 30 years in prison. One, she could still receive up to 14 years for it. LOL. The sentencing for which was originally scheduled for December the 15th, 2022. However, sentencing was moved to January. The reason why is so that Jen Shah could enjoy a last Christmas with her family before she goes to prison. So with this limited information, we'll now go to the sentencing of Jen Shah. Jen Shah, aka Inmate No. 152, found guilty of conspiracy to commit wire fraud after pleading guilty to that crime as part of a deal. Her legal team had sought a 3-year prison sentence. The prosecutors recommended 10 years. She was sentenced to 78 months in prison. The reason the article states a large number is because it looks more impressive. Essentially, she got 6.5 years in prison. She also had to forfeit $6.5 million and pay up to $9.5 million in restitution. Her former assistant Stuart Smith, who generated and sold lists of vulnerable victims, was deemed the least culpable person charged in the case. And I have no article available that would indicate what his sentence is, I'm afraid. Jen Shah, though, doesn't have to go to prison just yet. In fact, she won't have to surrender herself to federal prison until the 17th of February. Owing to this being a plea deal, I see it highly unlikely that any kind of appeal will be lodged. And while reality television thrives on this kind of controversy, I don't think she'll be in any 4th season of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Additionally, I took great interest in when her team had stood up and declared how much she felt sorry for herself and for what she had done, but it didn't stop her from doing it when she was doing it. At no point did she turn around and go, perhaps I shouldn't be doing this. The shame she has brought on her family, the embarrassment they'll undoubtedly be put through because now they're in the public eye. People are going to notice them, entirely because of your own Jen Shah's selfishness. You tried to use your race, no lie, tried to use your own racial background as a way of mitigating your impact, trying to reduce the sentence because of your upbringing, where you grew up, who you are, and what it's really about, what you really are as a person behind closed doors. It's not a character like on TV. I swear down in an American accent. Really, you're just a shyster. That's what you are. And soon to be an inmate in an orange jumpsuit in a federal prison. Congratulations.